This is a Peavy bass that a good friend of mine, Calvin, brought into the shop. He just bought this recently with the sole purpose of having me turn it into a fretless bass. And kind of excited about that. It's kind of an easy thing to do, really. I mean, all you have to do is remove all these frets. But we're going to do it a little nicer than that. We're going to try to be careful with that fretboard. Instead of leaving empty lines where the frets were, we're going to put in a piece of maple veneer. And we're going to put it where the frets used to be. Because he's not used to playing fretless, so he likes the idea of having the visual line there instead of trying to blend it in. And I kind of like that idea too, because you'd never really hide the fact that there's lines on here if you used, say, a darker, even a rosewood or an ebony or whatever. So I think it'll look really sharp, especially since the body is multicolored in wood grain already. So what we're going to do is rip out all these frets and have some fun. So I don't have a fret puller, which is what you use to take frets out with. I don't do fret jobs, so I've never required one. But you know, there's a way around everything. The thing is, we need to take these frets out without damaging the fretboard, and that's not too difficult, really. I mean, what you don't want to do is come in here with a screwdriver and just pry them out. That'll ding up the fretboard. Even though I'm going to sand this to finish it when I put the veneer in, still, you don't want to put any dings in it because those will never sand out. So what I have is a tiny little screwdriver and just a finishing hammer and my soldering iron. And what I'll do is I'll heat up the fret. That'll soften any glue that's in there, and it'll also soften the wood and make it a lot easier to get that fret out. There doesn't seem to be a lot of glue. I did the first few there just because it was kind of tricky around the bottom horn. But they're coming up really nice. So this is my little trick here. I just get the screwdriver right in the very end, that little T part. Okay, go quick here. Just a few light taps. And I don't know if you can tell, but that fret has lifted up about 1/16 of an inch at least. And I'm just heating it up a little bit more here because this is probably cooled down in just that little bit of time that it took me to pry that up. Thing is, if it doesn't come out real easy, then just put a little more heat on it. Like anything, you start forcing it and you're in for trouble. So I just get that good and hot. Doesn't have to be crazy hot. You don't have to sit here for 20 minutes with the soldering iron on it. And now this should come right up. There we go. And I've got this clamped down. I don't know if you can see it in the video. I've got just one of those quick grips with a cloth to protect the neck and everything. Just so that when I'm prying up, the guitar doesn't move all over the place. Now, I'm just getting that tiny screwdriver right in there. You can actually feel the finish. Wow, that one come right up. No problem. There we go. Probably got that really hot. But yeah, right here, the finish will actually melt a little bit from the heat. Which, but that's no big deal because we're going to be cleaning that up later once we do the put the veneer on, or in, put the veneer in. So that's why I figured that would be the best place to try to pry those up. And it's also the bottom part of the fretboard, so if there is any little thing that's not quite perfect, it's at the bottom. And my friend Calvin, I don't think he's too picky about how perfect this is going to be. I think he's actually going to be surprised how nice it turns out. Sure hope he doesn't call me up changing his mind. It's a little late now. These frets came out relatively without any problem. But the one thing that I'm trying to fix right now are the chips that it's normal when you pull a fret out. You're going to get these little chipping areas.
you're going to refret this, it's not a big deal because the fret will cover, the new fret would cover that. So what I'm doing right now is getting some super glue, and you can see one here. That's a pretty big chip. And it's just kind of hanging on by a thread. If I were to sand this, that chip will come right out. So just to bring back the integrity of that part, the super glue would just run down underneath that chip, and I just push it down with this little screwdriver. Super glue dries pretty quick. Don't want to hold that screwdriver too long. And that chip is glued down pretty much forever. It's solid. The little ones I don't worry too much about because they'll probably be sanded away when I clean out the groove, because I haven't done that yet. This is before I've done anything. I've just taken the frets out and I'm just trying to protect the edge as much as possible. And by running the super glue along the edge, if there is any little tiny chip that's about to come loose, that'll pretty much take care of it. But it's the big ones I'm really concerned with, and any place I see potential problem, I just run a little bit along, a little bit of super glue along there like that, and I'll take care of it. So I'll just run along, I'll do the rest of these frets, and then I'm ready to clean this out. So I'm moving on to cleaning out the fret grooves. And what I've got here, this is 150 grit. It's from a sanding belt, a fairly large sanding belt. It's been hardly used, but a friend gave this to me because it broke on him. And he hated to throw it away, and he didn't want it, so he thought, you know, give it to me. I love stuff like this because it's got a really firm back on it. It's got lots of support. And it's not as aggressive as sandpaper, but it will last a long time. But for something like this, it's really, really useful. What I'm trying to do is just clean out the groove. I'm just gently trying to work it in, kind of like starting a saw when you're cutting a piece of wood. Just working its way in there. I don't want to go too crazy. I'm trying to be careful not to scratch the body. I drag it along the top of the fretboard. But once I get in there, I can kind of just do that. And I'm trying to hold it as straight as I possibly can. But you know, because it's a sanding belt, it's got a curve to it. And what I'm doing is I'm using the curve. So the curve is now kind of in the middle here, so it's giving more force hopefully to inside the fret than on the edge. So hopefully it's kind of compensating for the natural, my natural, it's going to tend to flare out on the ends, which I don't want. What I've got here, this is just a gift card. It's great for just gauging how far I have to go, and this is pretty much the thickness that I'm going to be using. So with this one here I've already done, you can see that I'm pretty much right on the right thickness. I'm where I want to be. So this one I have a little more work. This end I tend to be right on target, but as I go along, that part is I can't fit the card in, so I know to spend more time sanding up here. I've also cut these smaller ones for that reason, so that I can just sand at the top end. It doesn't take too long. Like anything else when you're building guitars, you just have to be patient. You know, you try to rush, cut corners, your end result isn't going to be what you want. So we're getting there. I think a couple more passes. Alright, I think we're done with this one. Yeah. Alright, I'm happy with that. And then we'll move on to the next one and the next. And yeah, it's exciting. I think this will look really, really good when it's done. Before I can glue in these the veneer pieces into the fretboard, I've got to sand the veneer. And I've got it set up here on my bench. I got it clamped down, and but there's two reasons it needs to be sanded. And one is it's a very rough surface right now, so I want it nice and smooth so that it's a nice clean look once it's glued in. The other thing is all the grooves I've made to the thickness of this card, which is about a 32nd of an inch. So the veneer is about a 1/16 of an inch, a little bit more. So I'll sand both sides and then we'll give it a measure and we'll see how much more we have to sand it.